Avoidants don't come back until you force them to. Let's get something straight when someone pulls away from you. When they ghost, go cold, disappear into silence, it's not always because you did something wrong. It's often because they are avoidant. They fear closeness. They crave connection but run from intimacy the moment it becomes real. But here's the catch: they don't come back because you waited. They come back because you changed. You see, avoidant people don't chase consistency. They chase mystery. They don't value availability. They respond to loss. And that's where your power lies. You don't get an avoidant miss you by sending long texts or waiting with the door open. You do it by closing the door, firmly and with grace. You force them to notice your absence by becoming unavailable in a way they didn't expect. You don't do it for them. You do it for yourself. Because you deserve a love that doesn't need to be tricked into showing up. Avoidants don't fear losing you until they feel the reality of your absence. That's the part most people misunderstand when dealing with someone emotionally unavailable. You think that if you just explain yourself better, express your feelings more clearly, or show them how much you care, they'll finally see what they're about to lose. But that's not how an avoidant attachment style works. An avoidant isn't wired to respond to closeness in the same way you are. In fact, the more available you become, the more their internal alarm bells go off. Closeness feels like pressure. Vulnerability feels like a threat. So when you try harder, lean in more, or over-communicate your pain, they don't move closer. They retreat further. Here's the brutal truth. If someone can have all of you while offering very little of themselves, they'll never feel the urgency to change. You're effectively rewarding their detachment. They get intimacy on their terms, when it's convenient, comfortable, and safe for them. Meanwhile, you're left holding all the emotional weight, hoping that your patience or your loyalty will somehow earn their love. But it doesn't. In fact, the more you prove you're always there, the less they value your presence. And the cycle continues. You give more, they give less. The only thing that disrupts that cycle is distance. Real felt, intentional distance. Not the kind where you post cryptic quotes on social media or pretend you're fine. That's still a performance aimed at getting their attention. We're talking about actual absence. The kind where you stop engaging, reaching out, stop feeding the connection. Not out of spite, but from clarity. You've recognized the pattern, and you're no longer available for it. When an avoidant feels that genuine shift, not a threat, an ultimatum, but complete energetic removal, something happens. They notice the quiet, they feel the space, and for the first time, they become the one who has to sit with the discomfort of disconnection. That's when the fear of loss begins to kick in. Not when you cry, not when you beg, and not when you over-explain. Only when your absence becomes undeniable do they even begin to ask, what happened? This isn't about playing games or using withdrawal as manipulation. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful message you can send is silence, because your presence is valuable, but only when someone realizes it could actually disappear. People often don't change or they feel the consequences of their behavior. And if your response to their emotional distance is to stick around and wait, this isn't about you not. You've removed the very thing that might wake them up, the loss of you. In short, avoidants don't fear losing you when you're still there. They only start to reconsider when you're no longer within reach, emotionally, mentally, or physically. That's when the dynamic shifts. And that's when the decision to return becomes theirs, but on very different terms than before. When an avoidant pulls away emotionally, it's often because they need space to process their feelings and regain their emotional equilibrium. The instinctive response from most people might be to chase, to reach out, to try and fix the situation, but this often backfires. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, space isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. It's their way of protecting themselves and finding their footing when the emotional closeness feels overwhelming or too intense. Understanding the power of space in this context is key to navigating a relationship with an avoidant. Space for them is not a signal that they don't care. It's not an indication that they are done with the relationship. Instead, space represents emotional safety, a chance for them to regain their sense of self and emotional balance without the pressure or intensity that often accompanies close relationships. For an avoidant, closeness is equated with vulnerability, and vulnerability is something they desperately want to avoid, as it triggers deep feelings of insecurity or fear of being overwhelmed. When an avoidant pulls away, the best course of action is often to resist the temptation to chase after them or to immediately try to resolve the situation. It's common to feel anxious, frustrated, or even hurt when someone you care about becomes distant. However, pushing for answers or seeking constant reassurance only intensifies the pressure they feel. This pressure is exactly what they are trying to escape when they withdraw. It can lead to them retreating even further, deepening the emotional divide between the two of you. Instead, giving them the space they need allows them to process their emotions in a way that feels safe and manageable. It provides them with the breathing room to reflect on their feelings and to decide whether they are ready to re-engage in the relationship. For an avoidant, this time to themselves isn't about shutting you out forever. It's simply about allowing their emotions to settle so they can figure out how to re-enter the relationship with a clearer head. During this time, it's important to resist any impulse to fix or control the situation. The more you try to intervene, the more likely it is that the avoidant will feel pressured and retreat even further. This dynamic can create a vicious cycle where the avoidant pulls away, you chase, they retreat, and you chase harder, all without ever getting closer. This cycle can be emotionally exhausting and damaging to the relationship in the long run. Instead, allow the space to work its magic. By stepping back, you communicate that you understand their need for emotional distance and you respect their process. This not only allows them to feel less suffocated, but it also gives you the opportunity to reflect on your own emotional needs and boundaries. Space isn't just beneficial for the avoidant. It can also be a time for you to focus on your own growth, your own confidence, and your own sense of emotional security. When you are secure within yourself, you become less dependent on external validation, including from the avoidant. This shift in energy can actually be one of the most attractive qualities to an avoidant because it shows them that you are emotionally independent and stable. Ultimately, allowing space doesn't mean letting go or giving up. It simply means giving both you and the avoidant the chance to reconnect with your own emotional centers and reassess the relationship from a healthier, more balanced place. When they feel ready, they will come back, but only when the space has been honored and both of you have had the time you need to process the situation. Shifting your focus away from the avoidant and turning it inward is one of the most powerful actions you can take when dealing with someone who has an avoidant attachment style. It's natural to want to fix things or to constantly worry about the status of the relationship, especially when the avoidant has pulled away. However, focusing all of your energy on them, trying to understand their every move, or chasing after their affection can be draining and counterproductive. Instead, by shifting your focus to yourself, you not only free yourself from emotional dependency, but you also become more emotionally secure and independent, qualities that can significantly impact the dynamic of the relationship. The first step in shifting your focus is recognizing that you cannot control the avoidant's behavior or emotional responses. While it's tempting to try and solve their issues or convince them to open up, the reality is that the more you try to fix the situation, the more you push them further away. Avoidants by nature need emotional space, and the more you lean in to try to close the gap, the more they'll feel cornered and pressured. This doesn't mean you don't care about the relationship. It simply means you're prioritizing your own emotional well-being and creating a healthier dynamic. Focusing on yourself means putting effort into your own personal growth, interests, and emotional health. When you're in a relationship with an avoidant, there's often a tendency to pour all of your energy into the relationship itself, forgetting about your own needs, passions, and ambitions. Taking a step back and investing time into your own hobbies, career, and social life does two things. First, it creates a sense of fulfillment that is independent of the avoidant. You stop waiting for their validation, approval, or attention to feel good about yourself. Second, it makes you more attractive, not in a superficial way, but in a way that communicates emotional maturity and self-assurance. When you take the time to reconnect with your own passions and develop your own sense of identity outside of the relationship, it sends a powerful message to the avoidant. It shows them that you are not emotionally dependent on them for your happiness, which is one of the things that many avoidants find most attractive. They need a partner who is emotionally secure and able to thrive on their own, as they often feeling overwhelmed by the emotional needs of others. By becoming less focused on them and more focused on yourself, you demonstrate that you can create a filling life with or without them. This shift in focus helps to reduce the anxiety and frustration that often arise when the avoidant pulls away. When you're overly focused on them, you're constantly trying to figure out what's going on in their mind, why they're distant, and what you can do to make them come back. This anxiety can create a vicious cycle that pushes them away even further. But when you focus on your own growth, you reduce your need for external validation and find peace within yourself, regardless of what's happening with the avoidant. This emotional independence can make you feel more grounded, which will ultimately make you less reactive to their pullbacks. Furthermore, shifting your focus to yourself allows you to assess the relationship with a clearer perspective. When you're no longer fixated on the avoidant's behavior, You can more easily recognize if this relationship is truly serving your needs or if you're simply hanging on for fear of being alone. This isn't about not. This clarity helps you make healthier decisions about the future of the relationship. Are you willing to wait for them to be ready? Are your needs being met? Are you growing as a person within this dynamic? These are important questions that can only be answered when you take a step back and give yourself the space to think about your own well-being. Ultimately, focusing on yourself doesn't mean neglecting the relationship or abandoning the avoidant. It simply means creating a sense of balance in your life. You're still present in the relationship, but you're no longer dependent on it for your happiness. When you are emotionally secure and independent, it becomes easier to navigate the complexities of being with an avoidant, and it increases the likelihood that they will come back when they're ready, because they'll see that you are someone who has a life, a sense of self, and the emotional strength to handle their unpredictable behavior. When navigating a relationship with an avoidant, one of the most important shifts you can make is to transform the dynamic from clinginess and emotional dependence to one of mutual growth and respect. Avoidants are naturally repelled by emotional neediness, as it triggers their deepest fears of being overwhelmed and losing their sense of autonomy. The more emotionally dependent you are on them, the more they will retreat. However, if you focus on cultivating a relationship based on mutual growth, where both partners are emotionally secure, independent, and continually evolving, the connection has the potential to become much more fulfilling and lasting. The key to this shift is recognizing that love and emotional connection are not about dependency, but about supporting each other's individual growth. Avoidants need to feel they are in a relationship with someone who is strong, secure, and has their own life outside of the relationship. When a person is emotionally independent and isn't relying on the avoidant for constant validation or emotional reassurance, it creates a healthier and more balanced dynamic. This sense of balance is something avoidants crave, even if they don't always realize it consciously. They are looking for a partner who can stand on their own 2 feet, while still offering a meaningful and supportive connection. In a relationship with an avoidant, emotional maturity is essential. Rather than being consumed by the desire to get closer or more intimate when they pull away, you need to focus on growing as an individual. This might mean diving into your own career, exploring hobbies that bring you joy, strengthening friendships, and developing a deep sense of self-love and confidence. By doing so, this isn't about you not only become a more attractive partner, but also foster an environment where both you and the avoidant can thrive. This kind of personal growth signals to the avoidant that you are not emotionally dependent on them for your sense of worth or happiness. The relationship becomes one where both people are equals, each bringing their own sense of fulfillment to the table. Avoidants are often afraid of being consumed by the relationship, so when the focus is shifted from neediness to mutual growth, the pressure they feel can be relieved. The more secure and self-sufficient you become, the less they feel like they need to protect themselves from emotional overwhelm. In fact, when you stop chasing them or demanding more emotional connection, you create space for them to come closer on their own terms when they feel comfortable and ready. For many avoidants, the idea of being in a relationship where both people are emotionally independent yet still emotionally connected is incredibly appealing. They don't want to feel smothered or controlled. Instead, they desire a partner who can stand alone, who has their own interests, passions, and emotional foundation. When you create this environment of mutual growth, you're no longer tying your self-worth to the success of the relationship or demanding emotional validation. This makes the relationship feel safer for the avoidant because it reduces the pressure and allows them to open up when they are ready. On the flip side, focusing on mutual growth also forces you to evaluate whether this relationship is truly serving your needs. If you are constantly trying to prove your worth or waiting for an avoidant to come around, you're neglecting your own emotional well-being. In a healthy relationship, both partners should feel valued, understood, and appreciated. By focusing on your own growth, you not only increase your emotional security, but also create a stronger sense of self. This, in turn, enables you to set clear boundaries and communicate more effectively within the relationship, ensuring that your needs are met as well. Ultimately, when you prioritize mutual growth in the relationship, you foster a dynamic where both partners feel empowered and valued. For the avoidant, it allows them the space they need to feel emotionally secure, while also feeling drawn back into a relationship that feels safe and non-threatening. This isn't about, instead of focusing on how to change or fix the avoidant, you focus on becoming the best version of yourself. This shift in focus allows the relationship to develop in a way that feels natural and fulfilling for both you and the avoidant, creating a healthier and more balanced connection. When an avoidant partner eventually returns after a period of emotional withdrawal, it's crucial to approach the situation with clear boundaries. These boundaries aren't about building walls or pushing them away. Rather, they are about ensuring that you protect your emotional well-being while still maintaining the possibility for a healthy, Balanced relationship. When an avoidant pulls away, the dynamic often becomes unbalanced, with one partner feeling emotionally neglected while the other feels overwhelmed. By setting clear boundaries when the avoidant returns, you establish a sense of mutual respect and emotional security that can help stabilize the relationship going forward. One of the first steps in setting boundaries is recognizing that just because they come back doesn't mean everything will automatically fall into place. The time apart has likely given both of you space to reflect, but it's essential not to slip into the old patterns of behavior that caused tension in the first place. Avoidants can struggle with consistent emotional engagement, and if you allow the same dynamics to unfold, where you chase after them or compromise too much to keep the peace, you risk repeating the cycle of emotional withdrawal and distance. Setting boundaries creates a sense of structure within the relationship and establishes what is and isn't acceptable in terms of emotional availability, communication, and behavior. An essential boundary to establish is around emotional availability. You must be clear about your need for open and honest communication and express that you expect the same level of emotional investment from that you are willing to give. Avoidants may not always be comfortable with deep emotional discussions or showing vulnerability, but it's important to communicate that a relationship cannot thrive on superficial engagement alone. This doesn't mean forcing them to open up or confronting them with ultimatums. Rather, it means calmly and assertively explaining that emotional closeness is necessary for the relationship to move forward. This approach allows them to understand that there are certain emotional standards you're unwilling to compromise on. Another critical boundary is about not tolerating inconsistency. Avoidants often struggle with emotional ups and downs, withdrawing when things get too intense and coming back when they feel ready. However, it's important to let them know that you cannot be in a relationship when their behavior is unpredictable. While you respect their need for space, you also need consistency, respect, and emotional reliability. If they return but then retreat again at the first sign of intimacy, it's important to assert that such patterns are not acceptable. Let them know that you are not willing to be left in limbo, and that while you understand their fears and need for space, you also need stability to feel secure in the relationship. Furthermore, you must also establish boundaries around how much emotional labor you are willing to take on. Often, people in relationships with avoidance end up absorbing much of the emotional work, constantly reassuring, comforting, and accommodating their partner's needs while neglecting their own. When they return, it's important to clarify that you are no longer willing to carry the emotional weight of the relationship alone. Relationships are partnerships, and both individuals must contribute to emotional growth and balance. This is particularly important with avoidants, as they may not naturally initiate emotional labor themselves. They need to understand that in order for the relationship to be healthy, they too must show effort in maintaining emotional balance and closeness. Finally, it's important to set boundaries that protect your self-esteem and emotional well-being. If the avoidant returns but still behaves in ways that make you feel small, unimportant, or neglected, you must assert your worth. You don't need to accept disrespect, emotional unavailability, or behavior that makes you feel undervalued. When you set these boundaries, you are communicating that you respect yourself enough to walk away from any dynamic that isn't mutually fulfilling. This self-respect is crucial because it shows the avoidant that you will not tolerate emotional neglect or inconsistency. This isn't about you not, and that their return must be matched with genuine effort and investment in the relationship. Setting clear boundaries when an avoidant returns is essential not only for your emotional health, but also for the long-term success of the relationship. Boundaries create a framework that allows both individuals to understand each other's needs and expectations. They provide structure and security, allowing the avoidant to re-engage at a pace that feels comfortable for them, while ensuring that your own needs for emotional connection, consistency, and respect are met. When approached with mutual respect and understanding, these boundaries can help both partners build a healthier and more secure relationship. Thank you all for being a part of this conversation. Relationships can be complex, and understanding different attachment styles is crucial for creating stronger, healthier connections. I hope the insights shared today offer you a fresh perspective on dealing with avoidant behavior and help you navigate these relationships in a way that supports both your needs and the needs of your partner. Remember, you deserve a relationship that brings you peace, growth, and mutual respect. Don't be afraid to prioritize your own emotional well-being while allowing space for the relationship to evolve naturally. Thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best in your journey toward healthier, more balanced relationships. Take care!